Hi team, I hope you're all well. Today I am going to tell you about my recent reads in the back end of April. So this is from I think it's the 17th to the 30th of April. So yeah, this is just the second half of April basically, recent reads. It's taken me ages to record this because in all honesty I cannot be bothered editing at the moment, which is terrible, I know, but I'm just not in the mood and it's awful because I keep recording loads of things and then ending up deleting them because I can't be bothered editing. It's a nightmare. So I'm having an editing day today, the day that I'm recording this. Hopefully this is the day that this will go up if my internet will allow it. So let's see if I can. I'm hoping to just do this in one. My camera basically has like a 24-minute limit and then it'll start all over again. It doesn't get rid of the video, but it just starts another 24 minutes. So I'm hoping to just do this in one sitting. Let's hope I can do that. So I managed 14 books in the latter half of April. I think in total I read about 23 books, which is the least amount of books in any one month that I've read so far in 2020. I think January and February I read 30 and I think in March I read 29. So quite low in April, but that's fine. It's no bother. It's absolutely fine. So to start off with, the first book that I read was The Switch by Beth O'Leary. I was on the blog tour for this, so thank you so much to Quercus, I think that's how you say that, I'm really sorry, the publishing company, for sending me a copy of this. It was absolutely loved it. It was absolutely lovely. I had the best time with it. I gave the Flatshare 4 stars last March, and I've given this one 5. I absolutely love this. We're following Lena and her grandmother Eileen. They're both called Eileen, but Lena goes by Lena. She works in London. Something happens that happened a year or two ago, maybe, I can't remember how long ago it was now, where Lena doesn't speak to her mother anymore. She just speaks to her grandmother, and something happens that you find out about throughout the story. So I don't want to spoil it for you because it's not in the synopsis, but this affects Lena massively. It affects her whole family, and basically she works herself to the bone in her job, which obviously works out really, really well for her company, but not so much for her, to the point that when she's got this really big meeting that she's got to host for one of their bigger clients, she cocks it up royally. Work forced her to go on a 2-month sabbatical, and she decides she's going to go visit her grandma for the weekend because it's about time she went back to Yorkshire and go see her grandma. So she goes for the weekend. Her grandma, 6 months ago I think it is, Eileen's husband left her for a younger woman, and she's been on her own ever since. She doesn't want to die like lonely, so she wants to date, and she's got a list of all the eligible bachelors within her town, which is a small town. It's one of those, you know, where she's on like the neighbourhood watch and she's on all of the committee stuff and all that lot. Everybody knows each other. So she wants to date, and basically Lena comes up with this idea that she stays in Yorkshire at her grandmother's for 2 months while she's on this sabbatical, and she does all the things her grandmother would usually do, and Eileen goes and stays in Lena's flat with her flatmates and dates. So that's where the story goes. It's really good. This is quite a deep story. There are a lot of underlying things going on in this, and it was really, really good. I absolutely loved it. It was 5 out of 5 stars for me. Fantastic. Highly recommend you pick this one up. Then I read The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This is a graphic novel and it's absolutely amazing. We are following Prince Sebastian and Francis, who is the dressmaker. She works in a shop where basically Prince Sebastian is about to turn 16, and for his birthday his parents, the king and queen, are throwing him a party in which he will be able to see the eligible women to become his wife. Frances ends up making a dress for one of the girls that's going to the party because she purposely destroyed a dress. She doesn't want to go to the party. She doesn't want to become Prince Sebastian's wife. So she asks Frances to make the most garish dress she possibly can. It turns out this dress is absolutely gorgeous, but it's black and it's just not suitable for going meeting a prince. But the prince spots the girl straight away and he wants to know exactly who the dressmaker was. He then employs Frances to start making him dresses. He loves to dress up as a woman and go out on the town and not be noticed. He doesn't get noticed obviously because he doesn't look like himself. He's got a wig on, etc., and dresses, and he goes out on the town, and him and Frances end up building this really good relationship between each other. His parents obviously don't know he goes and dresses up as a woman and goes out in the town as a woman regularly, and it's just really cute. There are a lot of things in here that are really important as well. Prince Sebastian is struggling with the fact that some days he feels fine as Prince Sebastian, and others he wants to dress up as a woman, and he's not sure why that is a thing. But Frances just takes it in a stride. She's just not bothered at all. She thinks he's pretty cool, and yeah, it's really, really good. I loved the ending of this. Highly recommend picking this up. Even if you're not into graphic novels but you like your contemporary stories, you're gonna love this. It's great. I gave it 5 stars. It was fantastic. Then I read In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. This was not what I was expecting at all. So we are following a Manhattan lawyer called Danny Cohen, who lives with her boyfriend. I think he's called David, if I remember correctly. She's been with him forever. They arrange everything down to a T. She knows when she's going to get engaged and all this. Like, anyway, she goes to this big job interview, and then she knows she's going out for dinner that evening with David to get engaged, essentially. She gets the job, she gets engaged, she comes home, they're about to order food because they were both so nervous at dinner that they didn't eat anything, and she goes and ends up having a nap in bed. So an hour goes by, but while she's sleeping, she's dreaming about the fact that she wakes up, she's in a different apartment. She doesn't recognise the boy that she's engaged to is not David, it's a different boy. She's never seen him before. And just an hour passes, and then she wakes up, she's back in her apartment with David. She's really confused by this because she says it felt so real, like it wasn't just a dream, it was almost like a premonition. She goes to see a therapist for other stuff as well, but she ends up telling the therapist about this. She doesn't tell anybody else, not even her best friend. And then the thing about the dream was it was literally 5 years to the day. So she then forgets about it a little bit. We skip time a little bit, and then we're coming up to 5 years to that date, basically 5 years in the future. And that's where things start getting a little bit strange, and it's really interesting. I would just recommend trigger warnings for this for terminal cancer and everything that sort of surrounds that. So just be careful. I don't want to spoil it too much by telling you exactly what's going on, because it's not in the description at all, and it was a shock to me. But just be careful if that's a trigger for you. But it's a really good book. I absolutely love this. I know there's mixed feelings about this one, but I really enjoyed it for what it was. Essentially, it was really good, very clever, very clever. The ending, I'm not sure if it was a little bit unsatisfying or not, to be honest. I suppose not, to be perfectly honest. I think it was really clever the way it was done. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend. Gave it 5 stars. You will notice there are a lot of 5-star books on here. I've been reading a lot of contemporary, so just keep that in mind. Then I read Meet Cute Club by Jack Harbon. Jack sent me an arc of this before it came out, so I've done a review on my Instagram, which will be linked down below if you want to go and check it out. And I loved this. I thought it was fantastic. So this is following 2 characters. We've got Jordan and Rex. Jordan is essentially runs this book club that there's only a couple of members in it. He works a really good job, but say really good job, it's essentially a call centre, but he makes quite a bit of money because he's good at his job. So he runs this book club, essentially where he buys the books for the people that go to the club, because he wants to keep people in the club, essentially. So he buys the books, he goes to the bookstore one day, and the guy behind the counter is a new guy. He knows the girl that runs the bookstore. Guy behind the counter is a new guy, it's Rex, and he's quite sassy with him and gives him a bit of grief about the fact that he's picking up romance books. Like, why are you picking up romance books? You're a guy, blah blah. Has a bit of flirty banter with him and picks on him basically for what he's doing. Rex is in town, not permanently. He is essentially cleaning out his grandmother's house. She's just passed away, so he's cleaning out his grandmother's house, and he ends up joining Jordan's book club. Now Jordan thinks he's doing it just to spite him and to give him more shit, but it turns out they end up building a relationship, and it's amazing. I really enjoyed it. The pair of them have both got underlying things going on between them. So Rex has got issues with his father. He's got a half sister that he didn't know about until recently, and things like that. Jordan has issues with his job. He just doesn't really they want him to do more stuff for no more pay and things like that. So they've both got underlying stuff going on that does affect their relationship, but it's amazing. I just highly recommend. I think you're gonna love it. It's great. It's on Kindle only, so do go and check that out. Jack's writing is fantastic and he's so lovely. Highly recommend. 5 stars as well. Forgot to mention that. Gave it 5 stars. Then I read Rogue by Olivia Hale. This was another arc that I was sent. I gave this 4.5 stars. It was really good. This is following Hayden Cole and Lily Marchand. Basically, Hayden is taken away from his father, who is an alcoholic and abusive. His uncle takes him away, his mother's brother. His mum has passed away and he takes him away to live with him, and his uncle gets a job with the Marchands, who are like a very rich family, and they own a beach house, and they basically say that Hayden and his uncle can live in the beach house. It's like a live-in job, and his uncle will be paid, etc. They end up paying for Hayden to go to posh school and things like that as well, because they take a liking to him. And Lily has got, she's the daughter, obviously, she's the first person that Hayden meets, and she's got 3 brothers as well. So there's 3 brothers and Lily, can't remember the name of the 3 brothers. And basically this is the story of, this has like you know, where we go back and forth with time. So we've got both points of view, both like Hayden and Lily's, which I absolutely loved. I love when we get multiple points of views in contemporary romances. And then we obviously switch back to when they were younger, so we get in the full story because something happened. So they were building a relationship up, which Lily's brothers knew nothing about, because Hayden was scared about telling her brothers, because obviously they're protective and they don't want Lily dating anybody. And they end up building a relationship up until a certain point, and then Hayden bails basically and goes and joins the Marines. He then comes back from the Marines and he moves back into town, and this is like several years later. I think Hayden's probably like pushing 30 or something. Lily's a little bit younger, she's like 20, in her late 20s, and they end up building their relationship again. So they go from friends to lovers, then to enemies, then back to lovers, and it's just really amazing, the story that goes on. The only thing I did struggle with was the time jump, and also, you know, because we've got both multiple points of view and the time jump, so that was a little bit of a struggle for me, but after a bit I got used to it. It was fine. But to start off with, the story started to meld a little bit and I struggled with that a little, just a tiny little bit, but it was fine after a bit. And I just loved the story so much. I loved that it had the brothers in it, the element that Hayden was worried about telling his best friends, her brothers, that he was dating Lily, things like that. I just really enjoyed it. It was so good. Highly recommend. 4.5 stars. Just couldn't get enough of it. It was so good. Then I read Sixth Target by James Patterson. This is the 6th in the Women's Murder Club series, so I can't tell you much about it, but this is a detective thriller type story, and I do recommend picking this series up. I gave this one 3 stars. It wasn't one of my favourites out of the ones that I've read so far, but I am going to continue with the series when both myself and Siobhan are back in the game mentally and with all this shit going on, because we have been struggling a lot with reading. We're just picking up what we want to pick up rather than, you know, buddy reading things essentially. Trying to explain that's very difficult, but I do recommend picking this series up. It's great, I love it, so that's all I'm going to say about that one. Then I read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I obviously gave 5 stars. This is the illustrated edition. It's the first time I've read this version and I absolutely loved this. This is my favourite one out of the whole series. It is literally my favourite, so I'm obsessed with this one. I love Sirius Black, so don't know what else to tell you really, because if you don't know about Harry Potter then we can't be friends. I'm joking, we can. You need to know about Harry Potter, go and look it up. Then I read The Adventure Zone, Here There Be Gerblins. This is another graphic novel. This is a D&D graphic novel, so I don't know a great deal about Dungeons and Dragons. I don't play, I don't know anything. This essentially has been inspired from the podcast The Adventure Zone, which is ran by the McElroy family essentially. Clint McElroy, Griffin McElroy, Justin McElroy, Travis McElroy, and then Carrie Peach. I don't know how you pronounce that last name. I think this is a group of maybe dad and sons possibly, or just brothers, I'm not sure. But yeah, I loved this. It was fantastic. What I really enjoyed was the element that the person who's running the D&D campaign, let me see if I can get this, jumps in every now and then to chat with his D&D characters. I just loved it. It was really good. So like I said, I don't know a great deal about D&D, but I have read Kings of the Wild, which was my first toe in the water with D&D, if you like. I don't know where I was going with that. That was my first sort of dealing with D&D, and I really enjoyed it. So I loved this. Before I'd even finished, I bought the second one. So it was fantastic. Highly recommend. A lot of fun. Laughed so much. I gave this 5 stars. It was outstanding. Then I read Undercover Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. This is the second in the Bromance Book Club series. I read Bromance Book Club earlier on this year and I gave it 5 stars. I've given this one 5 stars. I like this one even more, which is surprising because I thought that a lot of, well, I know a lot of people didn't like this one as much, but I loved this one. I thought it was great. In this one, we're following Mac, who in the first one is essentially, you know, like the book club's Joker, if you like. He's a bit of a dick, and I went into this with some trepidation because I was worried I wasn't going to like this because I didn't like Mac as a character. But what I loved about this was that we didn't just see, you know, the brashy, ballsy side of Mac. We actually saw the vulnerable side of Mac. We saw all sides of Mac. We saw him as a person. We're also following Liv, who is I think the main character from the first book is called Gavin, if I'm right, and it's his wife's sister, so his sister-in-law. So following both Liv and Mac. I wasn't a huge fan of Liv in the first book either, but again, we got to know her more in this book, and I just really loved them both. It's following them go from enemies to lovers, but it's also following Liv on a story in which she catches her she basically works for a celebrity chef, and she catches the owner, who is a bit of a dick, feeling one of the younger girls up, basically assaulting one of the young hostesses, and Liv wants to try and help her get out of that job, and also wants to try and help anybody else who has been assaulted by him and try and shut his company down, essentially. And Mac wants to help her out, and I just loved that side story along with their relationship as well. I just loved everything about this book. It was fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend, but do pick up the Bromance Book Club first, and I can't wait for the third one to come out later on this year. It's going to be amazing. Then I read Cabin 1 by Amanda McKinney. This I had on NetGalley, but it's already come out. The following 2 books, Cabin 2 and Cabin 3, have also come out. So this was following Gage Steele, who is an ex-Marine. It's also following his 3 brothers, Gunnar, Phoenix and Axel. The names in this story, honestly, I was like, oh no, this is going to be like the trashiest romance ever. But it wasn't. It was amazing. It was so good. I actually really enjoyed the names by the end of it. And we're also following Nikki Avery, who is a workaholic. Basically, it starts out, so Gage, all his brothers are ex-Marines, and they're all ex-Marines because they left the Marines a year ago when their dad died, who ran a like multi-million, I don't know if it was multi-million, but it was a really rich security company. They ended up leaving the Marines so that they could continue his company, essentially. So they own this massive security company in which in the middle of the forest they own a load of like loads of land in the middle of this forest, and they've got a massive house that they live in and where they do all their work from, and then they've got 3 cabins, cabin 1, 2 and 3, where the people that they're looking after, they do a lot of presidential work, but they will also take in people who are running away from violent exes with kids, like they've got kids as well and things like that. So they will take in other people like that as well, and those people will stay in the cabins until they can be relocated and secure and safe and stuff. So that's the Gage's backstory, and then Nikki's story starts. We start off with Nikki, who is a workaholic. She's on her way home from a yoga session or something, and she gets pulled over on this back road in the mountains, and 2 guys try and assault her. So she manages to kill one of the guys and then run away. She ends up running for hours in the forest with the other guy chasing her, which is weird. You'd think he'd just run away. And she ends up on Steele Security's land. So Gage manages to find her, he ends up finding out what's happened, the police get involved, etc, etc, and she becomes one of their clients. She ends up becoming Gage's specific client. So their romance just kind of comes from there, but there are backstories to each of these characters as well. I love when this happens. But yeah, it was really good. Multiple points of view, again, really loved it. Cannot wait to continue the series onto Cabin 2 and Cabin 3. We follow Gage's brothers, Axel and Gunnar, in those two stories, but alongside this, like in the background, Phoenix is having trouble understanding that his dad just died from a heart attack. He thinks there's something else going on in the background. His dad was looking into something else, and that's why he ended up dead. He thinks that something else is going on and his dad was actually murdered. It wasn't just an accidental heart attack. So Phoenix has been looking into that, so that's where that goes. But I loved this. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was fantastic. Highly recommend. It was great. Then I read Theirs for the Night by Katie Roberts. This was a short novella, which is the beginning of a series, which I've ended up downloading because I think it's going to be really, really good. The Thelanian Dynasty, I don't know how you pronounce that, I apologise. Basically following a girl called Meg Saunders who is going out for a birthday. She's not like she's not, you know, the going out type, but a friend convinces her to go out for a birthday. So they go out, and when she gets in the club, she spots 2 guys over at the bar who won't stop staring at her. They end up dancing with her, and they end up not convincing her by any means. She wants to do it, but they basically insinuate that they want to have a threesome with her. So she goes back to their place and they have a threesome. It's a very, very smutty book. I read it as part of Smutathon Readathon. I think it was that Readathon anyway. It was the group book, but I really enjoyed it. It was really, really good, and it's starting a series, which is great. So highly recommend. I am excited to continue with the series. It's going to be good. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't manage it in one 24-minute session, damn it. Then I read Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. This was a male-male romance and I absolutely loved it. This is not my first male-male romance by these 2 authors. I read Top Secret a couple months ago and I loved that. It was great. This is the first in the Him series. I think Us is the second one, and then there's a novella as well, I believe. So this is following Jamie Canning and Ryan Wesley. So Ryan Wesley goes by Wes, but it's following these 2 characters. Basically, Jamie has, so quite a few years ago, they're both hockey players, quite a few years ago, when they went to a camp, they were the best friends, and they ended up having a night together of exploring. Ryan is gay, but Jamie is straight, or so he thinks, and they had a night together, and then Ryan couldn't look him in the eye from then on because he's always been in love with Jamie. So they ended up changing teams. Something happened, they ended up changing on different teams, and then fast forward a few years and we end up finding out that they are going to play against each other, or so they think. There's some tournament thing and they are supposed to play against each other. They have a chance meeting, but Jamie has a girlfriend and she's come to visit him, and Ryan's a bit pissed about it and ends up not speaking to him properly or whatever. And then after a bit, Ryan feels bad about it, goes to see Jamie at this camp. So Jamie goes to this camp every year over summer where he teaches kids how to play hockey. Ryan used to go, it's where they used to go, and it's where this whole thing happened a few years ago. So Ryan goes to the camp to try and see Jamie. He ends up managing to live in with Jamie, and then things become a relationship, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good. I loved Ryan and Jamie's characters. I'm so excited to carry on with their story. I think it's going to be great. I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic, and I loved how it was dealt with. So obviously it turns out Ryan is gay, but Jamie is bisexual. So I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Highly recommend picking that one up if you are into your male-male romances. It was really, really good. Then I read Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. This is the second in the Fix Her Up series. I don't know what the series is called. I'm just calling it the Fix Her Up series. Fix Her Up was the first one, and the next one, Tools of Engagement, I think it's called, will be the third one. I'm really excited for that one. So this is following Rosie and Dominic, who are a married couple. This is a second chance romance, and they have been having issues for a long time. Dominic is ex-forces, and he just seems to be of the opinion that so long as he's providing for his wife, if he doesn't really give her attention, it doesn't matter, because that's what he grew up seeing with his parents. And Rosie gets to the end of her tether with it one day. She works in a perfume store, but she wants to open up her own restaurant, and her and Dominic used to discuss this all the time, that they would save up and buy a restaurant so that she could run it. And it's just not been something that they've discussed recently. Basically, like every Tuesday, I think it is, they have sex like clockwork. She gets in from work, she has some tea, they have sex, that's it. And the only intimacy she gets from Dominic. So she decides she's going to leave him, and she goes to live with Bethany, who is one of our main characters from the first book, who will be our main character. Well, she's one of the side characters from the first book, she'll be our main character in the next book. She goes to live with Bethany, and Dominic is like mortified, he can't believe that she's left him, and they end up going seeing this very questionable therapist and trying to work their shit out, because he doesn't want her to leave. And it turns out that he has been looking out for her, and he has been sort of showing his way that he cares, but in a way that she didn't know about. It was really, really good. I enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't enjoy the second chance romance in this as much as I did in the likes of Undercover Bromance, but it was really good nonetheless. I thought it was great. So yeah, and I loved the girl power in these books as well, between Bethany, Rosie, and I can't remember what the main girl's name is from Fix Her Up, but her as well. I can't remember. But anyway, really enjoyed it. And then finally I read The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This is the first in this series. I read the second in this series earlier on in April, which is a Happy Ever After playlist, like an idiot. If you're going to pick up the Happy Ever After playlist, please make sure you've read this one first. I just don't know how to shout this any louder. Please read this one first. Basically, we are following Kristen and Josh in this story, who we are following their story of getting together. So they're not necessarily, well, they are actually enemies to lovers, they become, so they are, the story is what. So this is really, really good, but this is their story, but the side characters in this book are Sloane and Brandon, who, if you have read the second one in this series, you will know the second book, the Happy Ever After playlist, is following Sloane, but something happens in this book with Sloane and Brandon that then brings in Sloane's story, if that makes sense. So the fact that I read the second one of this series meant that I struggled, not to the point that it affected my reading so much. I enjoyed the book that much that it didn't affect it that much, but it did in a way. I still gave it 5 stars. I loved it. But yeah, just make sure you pick this up first before you pick the Happy Ever After playlist up, otherwise it will affect your reading, the way that you enjoy this story. It will affect it. So I loved this. We're following Kristen, like I said, Kristen and Josh. Kristen is Sloane's best friend, Josh is Brandon's best friend. Sloane and Brandon are getting married. So Kristen is Sloane's maid of honor, Josh is Brandon's best man, and they have a chance encounter where something happens, and then they end up actually properly meeting each other literally like a half hour later, and their relationship just kind of goes from there. Kristen is of the opinion that she's not worthy of love and things like that. She's got a lot of underlying issues going on with this, so just be careful with this. Trigger warnings for infertility and things along those lines, just be careful with that. I know a lot of people have had an issue with the end of this story, but I thought it was actually beautiful. Maybe it helps that I have read the second book, so I know the rest of their story before I went into this. I don't know, but I just thought it was really, really nice, and I just loved it. I thought it was great. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend picking the series up if you haven't done so already. Also, there is a dog in this called Stuntman Mike, so I mean, if you need any more encouragement, that's it. There's your sign. So great timing, because my battery's about to die. Those are all the books that I read at the back end of April, so I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy it more than I'm going to enjoy editing it. Please give it a like down below if you did. I would really appreciate it. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were on them, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Again, I would really appreciate it, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.